Hi everyone, welcome to Northern Zen Yoga. Today we're going to do a different kind of yin yoga. We're going to be doing a yin that works specifically with the directions of the hip. Now, if you have had hip surgery, please check with your physician before you attempt to do any exercise involving movement of the hips. If you have osteoporosis in the hip, or you have arthritic condition of the hip, or you have had a recent injury to the hip, I would recommend that if you have the opportunity to check with your doctor, do so. But if you don't and you want to do this video, please listen to your body. It's so critical. Don't do anything that is causing you pain. Pain is an indicator of damage being done. So if you're just feeling achy, stretchy, and you're not looking exactly like me, you're still getting the benefit of the hip stretch. And that's important. If you're feeling it, you're doing it. So here we go with 6 directions of the hip for yin. All right. So today in yin, we're going to focus on the movement, the 6 directions of the hip. And just like some of the practices we do where we only hold the stretch for maybe 1 to 3 minutes, that's what today's practice is going to look a little bit like, at least in the beginning. I want us to look at, excuse me, I have a cold, so if I start to sound a little nasally, I apologize for that. Um, what I want us to do is I want us to become aware of where our limitations are within the range of motion of the hip. And can sometimes be very uh, opening for your mind to understand that if you have a problem in one of the motions of the hip, it could be what's causing you discomfort when you walk, when you sit, when you stand up from a sitting position. So getting those muscles and those tendons moving, getting the fascia stretched is really important in order for you to have more comfortable life with your hips for the years that are coming on. But I want to read this to you first. I found this in this book I've had this book a long time. It's called Downward Dogs and Warriors. And it's just a look at some of the positions of yoga and how to embody them. But in the preface, it says, yoga philosophy takes it for granted that human life involves suffering, because we mistake the physical world and body for something of lasting spiritual value and significance. The practice of yoga, as explained by Patanjali's, who actually was the father of the Yoga Sutras, the actual information of yoga, back in 200 years before Jesus came on the planet, at least that's what they estimate. In the Yoga Sutras, in a process of disidentifying with the body and with things that change, and redirecting our sense of unity to the external and the unchanging. So instead of looking at yoga as this is my body and my body only can do this, and it maybe doesn't feel comfortable, and maybe it's a little bit, difficult to do, look at it like how it is serving you in the long run, not only now, but in the future and in the afterlife, however you believe that to be. All right. So let's look at what the directions of the hip are. And there's 6 of them. So I'm going to stand, excuse me. You can stand with me or you can stay seated. But I'd rather actually you stood up and you keep a chair handy for just balance in this point. If you don't have a chair handy, for those of you watching this on the video, you could stand by a wall, or if you have a table or a desk convenient, you could also use that, or a counter. Just something so that if you feel like you're going to lose your balance, you can just put your hand there and stabilize yourself. So the most obvious direction of the hip is that we can move the hip forward. It bends here, and it rotates also back. And then we get a bit of bending in the glute muscle that comes in toward the thigh. So there's a little bit of a crunching here. And if you move it forward, there's a little bit of a crunch up here with your muscles. Now, if you're not able to move this freely, what will be affected is your ability to walk comfortably. So that's the first thing we need to work on. If by doing this swinging action, you're having difficulty moving the hip freely, you need to work on that, because this will make walking much more comfortable if you're able to get this stretched out a little more. The other direction that the leg can go is it can go out to the side. Now, this is actually bending the ball of the hip joint inward. It's rotating that ball joint so that you can lift your leg up, and then you can swing it across in front of the other leg. So now you're pulling that, pulling that ball joint so that the socket of the hip now is pulling the ball joint downward. Here, we're crunching it upward. Here, we're pulling it downward. So if this action is not free, then if you ever have to suddenly step out or step over something to the side to get out of the way, you might lose your balance or injure yourself. The last movement of the hip, the fifth and sixth movement, is, and we'll just lift our foot up just to make it much more visible. And I want you to really focus on not rotating your knee at all. The rotation comes from up here. To rotate your toes over to the outside of the body, and then rotate the toes toward the inside of the body. So if you're doing this and this is not possible, this is going to cause you difficulty if you want to turn, if you want to step back. So you need to make sure that you're looking at all of these different movements of your hip, and let's just do the other side, just so that we can see how the two sides of the body are quite often different from each other. So moving it upward, backward, moving it outward and inward, and rotating the hip externally and internally. And if that felt really good on one side and it felt much more difficult on the other side, that's not unusual. Or if it felt a little bit freer, but not a whole lot, that's not unusual either. What happens is we always have one side of our body that's slightly different. No two hip sockets are exactly the same, even though we have a hip socket here and a hip socket here. One might be quite different and quite differently directed. It could be different size. The relationship of the ball joint to the socket could be quite different. Things that have happened to us in the past that may have injured our hip, or maybe we're developing osteoarthritis or osteoporosis in the hip area, that could affect the actual shape of the ball joint. So all these little factors come into whether or not you can move this freely without feeling some discomfort. So we want to also differentiate between moving it freely with discomfort and not being able to move it at all. And that is the important thing we're going to work on. So if you were doing any of these movements and you got stuck, if you could only lift your foot to here, going to the side because you suddenly felt like you were locked up and it just didn't go any higher, not because it wouldn't, there was a sharp pain or anything of that nature, that's probably because your muscles and your tendons and your fascia have locked up around the hip joint from lack of usage of moving it in that direction. So let's look at how we can start to work on these with yin. So I'm going to be using a chair. You can sit on the floor if you like, if you prefer. And I'm going to show you how we can get these movements working in the yin postures. And we're going to hold these yin postures for up to 3 minutes, depending on the position we're putting our body into. So I recommend that you have a chair that's very stable. without arms so that you can move freely around the chair, and that you have either a pile of blocks or you have a small step stool that you can place for you to lay your leg on if you need to. So I've got a whole bunch of stuff here, and that is because my hips are probably a little freer than the average person is because of all of the time that I've been doing yoga. So I'm going to make a very high pile here. For you, I want you to discover where your lifting range is. If you get to about this height, which is about the height of the step stool itself, or maybe even a block or two, or maybe the block on its side, even if you're looking at this and you feel tightness and restriction around here, that's your starting point. That's where you're at. It's not about, I want you to be really clear that it's not about having to be able to do what I do. It's about doing what is available to you and taking yourself to the edge of the stretch. You need to find the discomfort of the stretch, but you don't want to be trying to force yourself to do things that your body cannot do. So find where you're at, grab some blocks, grab some cushions. I'm going to make this very comfy. I'm going to put something up here. And sadly, the way I'm going to sit, you're probably just going to see the bottom of my foot. And I'm going to set the timer, and I'm going to place my leg up here so that I've got a little bit of a hamstring stretch happening. You should be able to feel your hamstring engaged. That's the tendon and the muscles that are going all the way up the back of your leg. And it starts just below your bum, and it goes down just below your knee into your calf muscle. So if you can feel that activated, that's good. If you're not feeling anything, you might want to start to drag your toe back toward your face to see if that helps to engage the hamstring. You'll have to tighten up the muscle in the thigh, in the front of the thigh to do that, and allow the back of the leg to stretch out. I'm just going to get our clock happening here. It's gone to sleep. So this stretch is going to be 3 minutes. Now, the other thing I want you to add to it, if you are able to, if you're feeling enough sensation sitting up straight with your leg extended out in front of you, then that's fine. If that's enough for you, if you're feeling stretching going on in the back of your hip, if you're feeling the rotation of the hip pulling, muscles pulling, things happening, your hamstring stretching. If you're feeling all of that, you can, in the sitting position, you're fine. Just stay there and breathe deeply. If you need more, you're going to very carefully start to bring your belly toward your thigh until the intensity of that stretch increases to a point where it's bearable, but it's not painful. And we need to really be aware of the difference. Pain is sharp, it's sudden, it's going to make you go, ow. Achy, stretchy, it's just not comfy. It doesn't feel good. It feels like you would like to stop doing that, please. But this is where you want to be. Over time, in the 3 minutes, you might feel that sensation dissipate. You might start to feel more comfortable. At that point, if you're sitting up straight, you might want to start to bring your belly toward your thigh. You have to keep your back nice and straight. Don't start rounding your head, try to reach down to your knee. Nothing like that. It's just about bringing this part of your body toward this part of your body. This is the hip fold. So this is what we want to work on. You're also going to feel it in your bum, in your glutes. You're going to feel it maybe up your back as you start to lean forward. These are all the muscles that support around the hip. So this is all good stuff. I'm going to start the timer. Let's take a deep breath in through the nose, and let it go through your mouth. And just close your eyes. Focus on something beautiful. We've got music playing. Listen to the music. If you want to meditate, this is a good time to do it by just letting your mind go quiet. Lots of deep breaths. Make sure you're not holding your breath. All of us take another deep breath in through our nose. Moan it out. Oh. Very slowly, especially if you're leaning forward, bring yourself slowly upright. And we're going to help our leg come off of this and just relax it down, bend at the knee. And we're just going to give our body a moment to recuperate from this. If you feel like you need to stand up and jiggle and wiggle around, you can do that. That's fine. So we're going to work on one leg at a time in this class. So we don't have to move anything just to work on the other leg. We're going to keep working within the range of motion on this side of this hip. And then I want you all, once we're done the complete sequence, I want you all to stand up and just see how the two sides feel next to each other. So the next one we're going to work on is the internal and external rotation of the hip joint. So we can keep our pile of stuff here. We're going to lift our leg back up. You want to go back to the place where you had the leg extended out. If you were lower down, that's fine. Just go back to where you were resting your leg. And now this is going to be a little trickier. And we're only going to be in these stretches for about a minute. So I'm just going to rearrange my counter here. So the main thing you need to focus on is that you are not torquing at your knee, that this movement is up in the hip. So slowly start to turn your toe toward the center. Make sure your knee is following with your toe. If your toe is turning and your knee is still upright, then you're going to be pulling everything at the knee and nothing at the hip. So very slowly, as far as you can go, bring your toe inward until you feel things starting to pull. When the pulling gets to the place where that's that achy, uncomfortable, you're going to hold it there. Have a look down your leg, your knee and your foot big toe should still be lined up with each other. You should feel a lot of pressure in the hip joint itself. And I'm going to set the timer. Take a deep breath in. Try to not let this relax. Try to keep the pressure on. In, exhale through the mouth. And if that pressure starts to dissipate, see if you can push it in further. It's only a minute, so breathe deeply and slowly. And relax your leg back to center. Take a moment, just place your foot so that your knee is in a bent knee position. You could take it off if you want to. I'm just going to bend my knee and just let my hip joint relax out a bit. So when you let it go and you let it relax, you should still maybe feel some residual achiness in the hip joint. That's normal. So the thing you're going to notice, especially in this particular movement of the hip, is that you might be finding difficulty going one way and not so much going the other way. Very few people are really good at turning it in and turning it out without any difficulty. Most of us are either an innie or an outie. Me, I'm an outie. Turning it in puts a lot more pressure in my hip joint. And this has to do with our bone structure. This has got very little actually to do with the attaching muscles. Although if you're feeling muscles and things stretching, you're still getting a good stretch. But a lot of times our resistance has got to do with where the bone meets bone in the hip joint. All right, let's go to the other side now. So extend your leg back out. Your leg should be nice and straight. Keep an eye on your knee and your big toe. They should move together as you rotate to the opposite side. Now we're going out this way. So rotating the foot over. And this takes a lot more for me personally to get any sensation happening. There we go, I found it. You may not have to move very far before you find that sensation. The main thing is don't let your knee bend too much. Make sure your knee is in a straight position and it's still lining up with your big toe. And we'll start the timer. Take a deep breath in through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Breathe slowly and deeply. Keep that pressure on. Don't let it relax. If you start to feel things getting easier, press down a little bit more. Breathe, breathe. And slowly release. You can lift your leg off of this now. You can either leave your pile where it is, or you can break it down for the next steps we're going to be doing. Now, these ones will be 3-minute stretches. So I'm just going to take some of this stuff down. I'm going to take one block and I'm going to take the cover I have on it just for comfort. I'm going to move everything else out of the way just so that it's not in your way to see it. And now we're going to work on that backward motion of the leg. And in order to do that, we need to sit on the chair in a way that we only have one bum cheek planted down. The other one's kind of hanging off. Now I'm sitting this way. You can sit if it's more comfortable on your chair to sit on this edge of the chair. I always find that the back of the chair gets in my way for me extending it out. So I'm going to bring my leg back and I'm going to rest it on the padding. And I'm going to try to just sway a bit more. I'm going to try to extend my leg back as much as possible. The one thing you'll probably not be able to do is straighten your knee out completely. At least I can. If you can, bonus. And we're going to be keeping the leg in the extended back position. Where you want to feel it is here. So I don't care if your foot is here and you're feeling it stretching here, then you're doing it. So we want to get that intense feeling of stretching going on in the front of the hip. And I'm just going to put this up here where I can reach it. So sitting on the chair, bring my leg back. I've got a stretch going on here. I want to sit up nice and straight. This is pretty reminiscent of the position we go into for warrior two. So hips are forward. Sorry, warrior one. Hips are forward. Both hips facing dead on in front. This leg extended back. I'm going to start the timer. We're here 3 minutes. Take a deep breath in. If you're on the floor, you're going to go into pigeon pose. I'm really sorry, I didn't think of people that were on the floor. So either you can grab a chair and come back into the chair, or you can go into pigeon pose for this. Same position as pigeon pose. The difference is we're sitting instead on the chair instead of sitting on the floor. Deep breath. In through the nose, exhale out through the mouth. Breathe. You want to keep that sensation of stretching here in the front of the hip flexor, psoas muscle. Take another deep breath in through the nose. Slowly let it go. Be mindful you're not relaxing the leg too much. You want to keep that stretch sensation going. Just a few more seconds left. And slowly release. Back to a neutral position. And just pay attention, be mindful of, and my words are not coming out right today. Be mindful of the sensations you're feeling as you release that stretch. That's just as important as the stretch you're feeling while it's happening, because that is telling you how your muscles are recovering from the stretch, how everything contracts back into shape after the stretch. So we've looked at the front extension, we've looked at the back extension, we looked at the rotation internally and externally. And now we're going to look at the side and the cross over. So the side, normally in yin, what we work on with the side one is we look at dragon fly pose, where we have the leg extension out to the side and our body is still facing forward. So for chair, we're going to imitate that by putting ourselves in a position where the leg is extended out to the side. Again, I'm just going to use a block and a cushion on top of it just for comfort. If that's too much even for you, just maybe that was too much for you even in the extension back, you can just have your foot on the floor. Both are correct. So I'm going to sit back just a little bit. I'm going to move this way over here, and I'm going to bring my leg out to the side. My hips are still facing forward, and I have my leg extended down. My knee and my big toe are in line with each other, and my toe is facing forward. So I've got a little bit of a pressure point happening right in here in the hip joint. How much pressure you're feeling here is got a lot to do with how flexible you are here. So say, for example, you're not as flexible as I am in this side position. If you're more flexible, just add some more blocks. But if you're less flexible, then you're just going to take this away and you're going to let your leg rest out to the side as straight as you can. And you have to move it a little bit more forward in order to get sensation happening, but not pain happening. You can do whatever it takes to get it into that place. So in yin, nothing is got to be done exactly that. You have to listen to your body. You have to go with where your body is today. So let's begin. This is going to be a 3-minute pose as well. So just relax here. Sit back a little bit more. Sit up as straight as you can to make sure you're not leaning like this so that you're taking that edge out of the hip. You want to be in the upright position so that you can feel that pressure point in the crease of the hip. Deep breath in through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Now, if you have your leg extended out as much as I have, and you, first of all, you started feeling some stress there, some achiness, and it's going away, you can start to now reach down the side of your leg, leaning into the extended leg. Try to find that stretch again. Take another deep breath in, coming into the last few seconds in the stretch. Exhale through the mouth. And let go, release, help your leg come off of wherever it is. Slide it forward, bend your knee. Give your leg some help. And just sit quietly. Breathe deeply, sending the energy that you need to these places that are achy. So the last movement of the hip, we've done the external out to the side, and we're going to, or there's another word for it, and I'm just forgetting it. Abduction, and now we're going to do the induction of the hip. So this one, we're going to do basically what every woman is taught to do when she's young, and that is to cross the legs. So I'm going to recommend to you that if crossing your legs right now is not possible, that those blocks or that stool that you were using before comes into play to bring that knee as close to midline and past midline as you can get it. If you're able to cross your legs, you're going to bring the leg over completely. You're going to make sure your knees are both not being compromised by having weight on them. And we're just going to be here for 3 minutes. So find, if you need to, you can bring a cushion and your stool over here to rest this foot on. You can bend this foot to the side if that helps you to balance out properly. What you want to do is you want to just feel not only the stretch here, but you want to feel the compression happening in the groin area as you bring that leg across. Now for me, I like to just put my hand right here, clasp just below my knee, and just keep both cheeks planted down and make sure that this is not gently moving back into a more comfortable position. Let's take a deep breath in. I'm going to start the timer. Inhale in through the nose. Exhale. And just breathe here. If you're sitting on the floor, this is half shoelace. If you like, you can start to bring your heel up beside your body, but usually that moves out of the midline. So what I recommend is that you just keep your foot off over to the side here as opposed to pulling it in, and just work on crisscrossing the knees. Make sure you're taking lots of those deep cleansing breaths. Moan them out, groan them out if you need to. Don't lift one cheek up to make it easier. Keep both cheeks planted down. Take another deep breath in through the nose, and moan it out. Very, very slowly, assist your leg to come back across. Relax it down. Just give it a moment. Take a few deep breaths. And I want you to stand up. So whether you're sitting on the floor, whether you're standing, I want you to stand up and I want you to feel how this side, how this hip feels compared to this hip. What do you feel? What are you noticing? Do you feel looser movement happening within the joint itself as you're standing here compared to this side? It's subtle, but it's there. And for some of us, it might be big. All right, we're going to work on the other side now. We got to keep going. So set yourself up for the leg extension in the front. And step back. And you're going to have to test the water on this side because this side you may not be able to extend your leg up as high as the other side, or you might be able to extend it higher. So keep that in mind. Lifting the leg up, but we shouldn't be going past the midpoint, which is straight out in front of us. So if you can get your leg extended out in front of you, straight out in front of you, and you can feel the hamstring stretch and you can feel the pressure in your hip joint in the front, and you can feel some stretching going on as the muscles around your glutes are helping to extend the leg out and keep it there. You're good. So I'm just going to start our timer. Take a deep breath in, and don't forget we want to feel that hamstring extension. Exhale. And if you're not feeling enough sensation, you can lean forward toward your thigh. Keep your head up, your legs straight, don't let your knee bend. You feel like your knee wants to bend, you can lean into your thigh, but not your knee. Take another deep breath in through the nose, and moan it out. And very gently and slowly, you can either take your leg right off or you can just bend your knee and put your foot down flat. Just give your leg a few seconds to come back. Deep breath in and let it go. So we're going to lift the leg back up. We're going to come into the rotation. First, I'm going to grab my thing so I don't have to come out of it just to get the timer on. So we're going to come into the internal and external rotation of the hip. This is 1 minute. And we have to remember the rule is that the knee and the toe move together. So you want to feel that that stretch is happening up in your hip joint. How far one way or the other you go is not important. It's what you're feeling. It's the sensation that you're feeling when you're doing it. So these are only 1 minute. So let's go in toward the center first. So line everything up, flatten your foot down, roll your leg in toward the center as far as you can. Take a deep breath in, sitting up nice and straight. Exhale, and just hold it there for a minute. I'll let you know when you can release it. Should be feeling an intense sensation all the way up to your hip. And release. Relax your leg. Give it a few seconds. See if you can feel the sensations as your leg comes back into space. Now we're going to go the opposite direction. So now we're rotating the leg out to the side as far as we can, and make sure your knee and your big toe are moving together so that the rotation is happening up here in the hip joint. Let's take a deep breath in. Exhale through the mouth. Make sure both bum cheeks are touching down. You're not leaning with it. Shouldn't be feeling anything in your knee. Should be all up here. Slow, deep breaths. And release. We're going to move our stuff so that we have a pad or a block, or if you don't need either one, if you can't find that that's comfortable, that high. Behind us, we're coming into the backward movement of the hip. Find where you can place your foot, sitting on one cheek. Stretch that back. It's a little bit too much behind me. You want to have your leg fairly straight. You don't want to be curling your hips so that it's like pulling you behind. I had it too far over before. I think now I'm in the right place. You want to feel that stretch right here. This is what we're going for. right here. So it doesn't have to look fantastic. Doesn't even have to look like your leg is straight. Just want to get this out of the way because it seems to be blocking. Yeah, I'm sorry. And this is going to be a 3-minute stretch. We want to make sure we got that flexor happening. So I'm going to start the timer. Sit up nice and straight. Warrior one, hips forward. It's also pigeon pose. Either one of those can substitute if you're not using a chair. Just going for this stretch back here. Deep breath in through the nose, and let it go through the mouth. Deep breath in through the nose. Exhaling through the mouth. Remember that stretch gets too comfy. Try to see if you can find a new edge. And slowly help your leg release. Keeping everything where it is on the side. You're just going to turn facing forward on your chair. Just give your leg a moment to come back to shape. Notice if you're feeling where that residual achiness is dissipating. Now we're extending our leg over to the side. So anywhere in the range that's similar to in dragonfly pose, where we try to go for the corner of our mat and beyond, or within the range from center to the corner of the mat. Find where you feel the stretch in the hip working for you, that it's not comfortable. Toes facing forward. Both cheeks able to plant down onto your chair. You can feel a nice stretch in here, some compression going on right in this area of the hip. 3 minutes. So take a deep breath in. Sit up nice and straight. And if it starts to get easy, start to lean toward the leg, but not away from it. If for those of you who have it before the point on your mat, you might want to see if you can move that leg a little bit further away from you. Get those deep breaths. Take them anytime you feel tension building in your body. Take another deep breath in through the nose, and let it go. And release, help your leg. It's going to need help to come out of this one. Give it a few seconds to come back. So it's good in yin after an extended stretch to allow the body to contract back into its natural position, which hopefully is a little looser than it was when you started. Simply by doing that, we don't put any undue pressure on the joint to now go into a completely opposite stretch or a different stretch altogether, or put any pressure into a joint that hasn't yet recovered. Generally, the longer you hold the stretch in yin, the longer recovery time you need. But anywhere from about 15 seconds to a minute, depending on how intense the stretch was, is more than enough. You don't need to go over a minute. All right, last one for this hip stretching is the knee crossover. Sorry. So this time, gently bring that leg across. Make sure you're not resting your body on your knee joint. You either have to be on the thigh or you have to be below the knee. If this feels like you're doing it, that's it too. You can have a block here to rest your feet on. Bring it over as far as you can. If you need to sort of hang on to the leg just to keep it from wanting to slide off your leotards, that's okay too. Make sure both bum cheeks are planted down, sitting up nice and straight. Let's start the timer. Take a deep breath in. Exhale through the mouth. Take a deep breath in through the nose and moan it out. Very slowly help your leg come back across. Relax it down to the floor. We're just going to give our body a moment before we go into our very last stretch. So while your body is recovering from that, I just want you to get yourself into position. So I want you to widen your knees apart so that you're at least touching down your back of your thighs onto the points of the chair if you're able to. If you can't open up that wide, it's okay. The other thing you can do is if the floor feels like it's way too far away for you and you come down, you can always grab your block and you can use the block to substitute for the ground. So the block has lots of sides. Sometimes you just need a couple of inches. So what we're going to do is we're going to come into a wide leg forward fold. So I want you to make sure you're taking care of your back because generally speaking, when we start to get older and we start to have issues with our hips, we're also having issues with our spine. And persons like myself who have osteoporosis of the spine need to be particularly careful with how we keep our spine when we're going into a forward fold. So just keep your shoulder blades in toward each other and slide them down your back. Keep your shoulders relaxed. We're going to come forward. We're going to be here for 2 minutes. I'm going to give us 2 minutes in this stretch, mostly because of time, and also because I don't know what your blood pressure issues are. Your head down for a long time may not be that good for you. Anybody feeling dizzy or like they're going to faint? Very slowly using your thighs, push yourself slowly upright and sit. Don't stand until the sensation goes away. For the rest of you that can handle it, stay for the whole couple of minutes. Let's take a deep breath in, flatten your back down. We're moving through the hips. So this is why I don't want you to start to curl your back or roll your head down faster than your chest is going. So let your chest and your belly guide the way. You can have your hands on your thighs to give you support. And when you feel ready, you can reach for your block or you can reach for the floor. Lift your tailbone between your cheeks. Lift that tailbone up. Keep your back nice and flat. And take a deep breath. Here we go. Inhale through the nose, exhaling through the mouth. Just breathe. Let your head relax. Let your belly sag between your legs. Make sure your head doesn't get lower than your belly, though. Keep it in line with your shoulders. Keep your tailbone lifted. Front of your pelvic area should be touching the chair. Tops of your thighs and your bottom of your bum should be touching the chair. If everything else comes off, that's okay. Feet nice and flat on the floor. Pushing that belly down and that tailbone up. Should be feeling pressure in your hip joints as you fold forward past the point of midline. Place your hands on your thighs, or if you're using a block, stand the block on the high side and push flat back all the way up. Give yourself a moment. Let your blood pressure equalize itself. Might feel a little dizzy. That's okay. Just have your head down for 2 minutes. Take some deep breaths. Get some oxygen in there. Shoulders relax. Let's bring our palms together in prayer position and sit any way that's comfortable now. Let's sit back in your chair for a moment. Take a deep breath in. Exhale. Inhale again deeply for Om. Om. Rub your hands together. Generate some prana. And as you do this, think of places in your hips. Focus on your hip joints. Focus your attention there. Close your eyes, place your palms over your closed eyes, and when you breathe in, open them. Send that energy right down your spine, right into your hip sockets. And on your exhale, palms to ceiling, sending energy back into the universe. Palms back together. Let's stand up. And let's wiggle these hips. Ooh. How do they feel? How does one side feel next to the other? Do you feel a little looser? I should have probably had you do a little bit of Uchi Kuch when you were all stiff and seized up. All right, everyone. Till next time. Bye for now. Namaste.